This video is sponsored by Hardwood Amino. Hardwood Amino is an app full of passionate NBA fans that just go on there and they talk about basketball. On the app, you'll find a ton of different content, such as blog posts ranging from the most casual topics and casual debates to the most in-depth analysis that honestly really shocked me the first time I went on the app. I mean, I saw a couple blog posts that were extremely well researched. And you also have stuff like polls, questionnaires, or just general fun storylines that people talk about. And also in this month of February, I'm going to be doing weekly Q&As on the Hardwood Amino app, where basically it's going to be a live podcast. It's going to be me on the app answering your questions live. So if any of that sounds like something you might be interested in, then go ahead and download the app Hardwood Amino. It's free. Go ahead, give it a try. And I think you'll find it very interesting. Alright, in today's video, we're going to talk about the greatest draft steal in every NBA team's franchise history. The first step is let's clarify what a draft steal is, alright? So technically speaking, whenever a player is drafted at a spot at which it is too low based on how high he should have gone, that could be considered a draft steal. So for example, Michael Jordan was drafted third, and while he might be the greatest player of all time, or certainly one of the greatest players of all time, it's really hard to call him a draft steal if he was drafted third overall, and if one of the players drafted ahead of him was Hakeem Olajuwon. And I guess just in general, the later the pick the player was drafted, the less impressive that player's career has to be for that player to be a draft steal. And on the contrary, if a superstar, let's say, was drafted close to the top 10, that might not be more impressive than, let's say, selecting a borderline all-star player in the second round. Now we just have a couple clarifications to put out there just so that we're all on the same page as far as the criteria for how to select a team's best draft steal of all time. The first one being that we're not really measuring what that player did for a franchise. You have plenty of instances where a team drafts a player and then that player maybe plays a couple seasons for that team, maybe one or two, but then goes on to have a better career or have their prime of their career for another team. And so for that reason, we're not exactly looking at how much a player did for that franchise, although we are going to maybe take that into consideration for sure. The second clarification is that in instances where a team traded for a draft pick on draft night, we're going to assume that the team that traded for that draft pick was indeed the team that drafted him. So the best example perhaps is Kobe Bryant. As many of you guys know, Kobe was drafted by the Hornets in 1996, not the Los Angeles Lakers. But we also know the story that the Hornets and Lakers essentially had already negotiated a trade before Kobe was actually traded. And in fact, when the Hornets drafted Kobe, they were already drafting Kobe with in mind of immediately trading him to the Lakers, which is what they did. So in this case, we're just gonna say that it's the Lakers that drafted Kobe. Alright, now with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. In chronological order, by the name of the city of the franchise. Number 1, the Atlanta Hawks. Kevin Willis, taken with the 11th pick in the 1984 draft. The 80s Hawks will forever be remembered for the high-flying dunks Dominique Wilkins put up, but alongside him stood teammates Kevin Willis, a double-double machine in his prime who played 9 years in Atlanta, made the All-Star team once, and overall enjoyed a 22-year-long career as a steady big man in the league. Honorable mention goes to Jason Terry, who was taken with the 10th pick in the 1999 draft. The Boston Celtics. Danny Ainge, taken with the 31st pick in the 1981 draft. Unlike most players who fall late into the draft, the reason Danny Ainge fell to the 31st pick had very little to do with his basketball abilities. Rather, it was the complication of Ainge pursuing both a professional basketball and baseball career that deterred teams from selecting him. When Ainge declared for the 1981 NBA draft, he was still under contract with the Toronto Blue Jays of Major League Baseball. However, the Celtics, after many legal disputes and buying out his baseball contract, selected Ainge, who would go on to be an important part of the two championship teams in 1984 and 1986, as well as make an All-Star appearance in 1988. Honorable mentions go to Paul Pierce, the 10th pick in the 1998 draft, and Rajon Rondo, the 21st pick in the 2006 draft. The Brooklyn Nets. Richard Jefferson, taken with the 13th pick in the 2001 draft. Jefferson was known as a great athlete coming out of college, but lacked the shooting ability to be a star forward. However, Jefferson quickly became an integral part of a Nets team that went to back-to-back NBA finals, and eventually developed into the 20-point-per-game scorer that many doubted he would ever be. A decade later, Jefferson would come off the bench for the 2016 Cavaliers, and eventually got the ring that he so desired ever since he entered the NBA. Honorable mention goes to Brook Lopez, the 10th pick in the 2008 draft. Charlotte Hornets. Kemba Walker, the 9th pick in the 2011 draft. Admittedly, there aren't many great options to choose from when it comes to the Hornets draft picks. Kemba Walker was a phenomenal college player for UConn, and after entering the NBA in 2011, he has improved his game every single year. Last season, he made the All-Star team for the first time in his career, and amidst trade rumors surrounding him right now, Walker has stated that he wants to remain as a member of the Hornets, but we'll see about that. There are no honorable mentions for the Charlotte Hornets. The Chicago Bulls. Jimmy Butler, the 30th pick in the 2011 draft. Butler came out of Marquette University as an extremely raw player. Not only was he a poor jump shooter, but he lacked many offensive skills that a guard or forward should have, which is why he fell down to the 30th pick. However, the two things he always had were his defense and his determination. Butler came into the league and slowly but surely gained the trust of head coach Tom Thibodeau, who grew to respect Butler's hustle on the court and his dedication off the court. Every offseason, Butler kept adding new pieces to his offensive game, and the guy who averaged 2.6 points per game as a rookie eventually developed into a two-way star and a 20-point per game scorer in just his 4th season. Honorable mention goes to Tony Kukoc, the 29th pick in 1990. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Mark Price, the 25th pick in the 1986 draft. The 1986 draft is unfortunately best known for its second overall pick, Len Bias, who tragically died at a very young age. Amongst the 24 players drafted ahead of Mark Price, only one ever made an All-Star team. Brad Daugherty, who was teammates with Mark Price from 1986 to 1994. Mark Price is known as one of the deadliest shooters in NBA history. Many people credit Price as also being a revolutionary player. Here's one way Price changed the NBA, as explained by his former teammate Steve Kerr. Quote, Mark really revolutionized the way that people attack the screen and roll. To me, he was the first guy in the NBA who really split the screen and roll. A lot of teams started blitzing the pick and roll and jumping two guys at it to take the ball out of the hands of the point guard. He dug right between them and shoot that little runner in the lane. Nobody was doing that at that time. You watch an NBA game now and almost everybody does that. Mark was a pioneer in that regard. Honorable mentions go to Zydrunas Ilgauskas, the 20th pick in 1996, and Carlos Boozer, the 35th pick in 2002. The Dallas Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki, the 9th pick of the 1998 draft. I'm usually hesitant to call a top 10 draft pick a draft steal, but Nowitzki, being by far the greatest player in Dallas Mavericks history, deserves this honor. With his unique play style and one of the most iconic basketball moves of all time, Nowitzki has ended up as just one of 7 players to score 30,000 points in his career. After being criticized for choking in the playoffs, especially in 2007 against the Warriors in the first round, Nowitzki redeemed himself in the 2011 playoffs, eventually beating the Miami Heat's Big Three, winning Finals MVP, and bringing Dallas its first and only NBA championship. Honorable mention goes to Josh Howard, the 29th pick of the 2003 draft. The Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, the 41st pick in the 2014 draft. Although he's only been in the NBA for 3 seasons, Jokic has already proven to be more valuable than tons of players drafted before him. As with many European prospects, there was a lot of uncertainty surrounding Jokic. Although he was named MVP of the Adriatic League in Europe, some pointed to his lack of competition. Others pointed out his poor physical conditioning, his lack of athleticism, and how that was going to hurt him in the NBA. While Jokic is far from a perfect player, he's the centerpiece that the Nuggets have chosen to build around, a crafty center with incredible vision and passing, as well as a developing jump shot. Honorable mention goes to Jalen Rose, the 13th pick in the 1994 draft. The Detroit Pistons, Dennis Rodman, the 27th pick in the 1986 draft. Due to poor academic grades and lack of basketball talents, Rodman was not offered a spot on any NCAA team. Instead, he played for the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, the NAIA. While he was a dominant player in college, his poor basketball skills and lack of competition in the NAIA caused him to fall to the 27th spot, where he was picked up by the Detroit Pistons. Soon after, Rodman found himself at home, and with his teammates they formed the Bad Boy Pistons teams that won 2 championships and repeatedly knocked Michael Jordan out of the playoffs. In 1995, Rodman would then join the Chicago Bulls, along with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, won 3 straight championships from 1996 to 1998. A 5-time champion, 8-time All-Defensive Team selection, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and 7-time rebounding champion, Rodman was one of the most unique players the NBA has ever seen, both on and off the court. Oh, and he has quite a good case for being the greatest rebounder of all time. Honorable mentions go to Joe Dumars, the 18th pick in 1985, and Chris Middleton, the 39th pick in 2012. The Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green with the 35th pick in the 2012 draft. The reigning Defensive Player of the Year was not seen as an attractive prospect by most teams. Labeled by scouts as a tweener that would struggle finding his place in the NBA, Draymond Green, through a combination of hard work and fortunate circumstances, developed himself into an irreplaceable component of the Warriors dynasty. A Swiss Army knife that did whatever the team needed him to do. Honorable mention goes to Monte Ellis, the 40th pick in the 2005 draft. The Houston Rockets. Sam Cassell, the 24th pick of the 1993 draft. As a rookie and a sophomore, Cassell was an important bench player for the back-to-back championship teams in Houston in 1994 and 1995. His most significant season came in 2004, where he made the All-Star team and was named second-team All-NBA. He was the second option behind Kevin Garnett for a Timberwolves team that ended up grabbing the first seed and making it all the way to the Western Conference Finals before losing to the super team Los Angeles Lakers. In his final season at age 38, Cassell was still an important player, this time as a member of the 2008 Celtics. Together with Eddie House, James Posey, and others, Cassell helped the Celtics form one of the best bench units in the league, which ultimately played a part in the Celtics winning the championship and Cassell getting his third NBA ring. Honorable mention goes to Calvin Murphy, the 18th pick in the 1970 draft. The Indiana Pacers. Reggie Miller, the 11th pick in the 1987 draft. Reggie Miller for his time was an NBA unicorn, a marksman during an era where coming off screens and shooting threes wasn't nearly as common or accepted as it is now. Miller, along with Antonio Davis, Rick Smits, and Dale Davis, formed a core that would go on to win 11 playoff series between 1993 and 2000. After struggling to get past the Michael Jordan-led Bulls, Miller and the Pacers finally broke through into the 2000 NBA Finals, where unfortunately they ran into a monster disguised as Shaquille O'Neal, who averaged 38 points and 17 rebounds to send the Pacers home after their first and only Finals appearance in NBA history. Honorable mentions go to Antonio Davis, the 45th pick in the 1990 draft, and Paul George, the 10th pick in the 2010 draft. Alright guys, that's it for part 1 of this video. All the other teams will be covered in part 2. And also make sure to check out Hardwood Amino. All the links will be down in the description below. And if you're already on Hardwood, make sure to follow me at MDJ. I have a couple posts up there already that I think you'll find interesting. Alright, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.